Sterling Vane screams. His mouth fills with the taste of hot copper and shattered ceramic. The platinum veneers on his teeth explode. They do not just crack, they disintegrate under the sudden surge of internal pressure. Tiny shards of precious metal bury themselves in his tongue. He tries to shout for help. The vibrations of his own voice cause a microfracture in his jawbone. The bone snaps. His chin hangs at an impossible angle. He takes a single step back. The floor tile beneath his left heel loses its structural integrity. It is not an old floor. It is reinforced marble, but the probability of a microscopic air bubble inside the stone reaching critical stress is now 100%. The stone shatters. Sterling's heel drops into the gap. His ankle twists until the ligaments pop like wet rope. Above him, the grand chandelier hums. 1,000 crystal pendants vibrate. A single steel bolt, rated for 10 tons of tension, undergoes instantaneous metal fatigue. The bolt shears off. The 3-ton light fixture drops. It does not hit the floor yet. It stops halfway, caught by a secondary cable. The jerk of the cable snaps the glass railing next to Sterling. A jagged shard of safety glass flies forward. It slices through Sterling's white silk jacket. It carves a 3-inch line across his chest. 6 hours earlier. The Golden Gala is a celebration of the impossible. Inside the scales of fortune, the laws of nature are suspended. A gambler at table 7 hits the jackpot for the 14th time in 1 hour. He does not even look at the cards. He knows he will win. The dealer's hands tremble. The dealer has not seen a losing hand in 3 days. Sterling Vane stands on the mezzanine. He glows under the spotlights. His suit is woven from spider silk and silver thread. He watches the Karma Sync monitors. The green numbers are off the charts. The resort is generating 1 billion credits of luck per minute. Perfect, Sterling whispers. He looks at his reflection in a glass of vintage nectar. Pure, positive energy. No accidents, no failures, just the will to win. He looks down at the lobby. Arthur stands near the entrance. Arthur is the only dark spot in the room. He wears a brown suit that is 10 years old. The fabric is thin, the elbows are patched. A bird has managed to fly through the triple-filtered air vents just to drop filth on Arthur's shoulder. A guest walking past Arthur trips on a perfectly flat floor. The guest's glass of red wine flies into the air. It flips twice and empties its entire contents onto Arthur's chest. Arthur does not move. He does not complain. He takes a handkerchief from his pocket and dabs at the stain. He looks at his watch. It is a plastic piece with a cracked face. Sterling descends the grand staircase. The crowd parts for him. He stops in front of Arthur. The music stops. The winners turn to look. "You are a ghost at a feast, Arthur," Sterling says. His voice is amplified by the room's acoustic sensors. "Every time I look at you, I see a loser. I see a man who expects the world to hit him. You are a walking infection of bad luck." "I am the filter, Sterling," Arthur says. His voice is quiet. "I absorb the entropy so this building stays standing. If I am a loser, it is because I am carrying your debt." Sterling laughs. He reaches out and grabs a gold-plated tray from a passing server. On the tray sits a small plastic container. Inside is a cold, dry sandwich. It is Arthur's only meal for the day. Sterling takes the container. He opens it. He sniffs the bread. "This is the food of a man who has given up," Sterling says. He turns to a socialite standing nearby. She holds a small monkey dressed in a silk waistcoat. Sterling tosses the sandwich to the monkey. The monkey takes one bite and spits it onto the floor. "Even the animals reject your reality," Sterling says. He takes his 50,000 credit glass of nectar. He holds it over Arthur's head. He tilts the glass slowly. The thick, golden liquid pours over Arthur's hair. It runs down his neck. It ruins the cheap brown suit. "You are fired, Arthur," Sterling says. He pulls a black data shard from his pocket. It contains the probability agency contract. Sterling snaps the shard in half. He drops the pieces into the puddle of nectar at Arthur's feet. The resort no longer needs a filter. I have optimized the system. My new algorithms have eliminated the need for a karma sink. We are a closed loop of success now. Guards, throw this trash into the street. Two massive security units grab Arthur's arms. They drag him toward the glass doors. Arthur's shoes leave a trail of wine and gold nectar on the white marble. Arthur looks back. He looks at the law of large numbers drone floating above the mezzanine. The drone is a machine with a giant 20-sided die for a head. The die is spinning. Sterling, Arthur calls out. The debt doesn't disappear. It just looks for a new owner. I own everything here, Sterling roars. I will take the debt. I will turn it into profit. The guards shove Arthur through the doors. He hits the pavement outside. It is raining. The rain is heavy and cold. It only falls on the sidewalk where Arthur stands. Inside the resort, Sterling raises his hands. Let the games continue. To the victor, the spoils. He walks to the master console. He places his thumb on the biometric scanner. A document appears on the screen. The Total Responsibility Clause. By signing, Sterling Vane assumes all legal, physical, and probabilistic liability for the resort's operations. In exchange, he receives 100% of the luck surplus. Sterling presses his thumb down. Agreement signed, the system's voice echoes. Transferring 10 years of accumulated probabilistic debt from Agent Arthur to owner Sterling Vane. Calculation in progress. The green numbers on the monitors turn yellow. Then they turn a deep, violent red. The 20-sided die on the drone's head stops spinning. It does not show a number. It shows a symbol of an empty void. Sterling feels a slight tickle in his gums. The red numbers on the monitor do not stop at 0. They plunge into negative infinity. Sterling Vane stares at the screen. He feels a sudden heat in his left pocket. The data shard, the one he snapped to fire Arthur, is glowing. The plastic melts. It fuses with the silver thread of his suit. It burns through his skin. Sterling does not flinch. He is paralyzed by the sound of the ballroom. The cheering has stopped. It is replaced by a low, rhythmic thumping. At table 9, a woman throws a pair of ivory dice. They do not roll. They hit the green felt and stop instantly. They do not show numbers. The pips on the dice migrate. The black dots crawl across the surface like insects. They gather on a single face, forming a solid black square. The woman screams. Her winning streak is over. The system registers a loss of 100% of her assets. It is a glitch, Sterling shouts into his radio. His voice cracks. Reboot the probability engine. Dump the karma sink into the atmosphere. Sir, the sink is gone. The chief engineer's voice crackles over the comms. The man is hyperventilating. When Arthur left the building, the vacuum seal broke. The entropy is not leaking. It is being pulled back in. The resort is now a gravity well for every disaster we ever avoided. Sterling watches the security feed. In the kitchen, a pressurized steam line fails. It does not explode outward. It implodes. It sucks the air out of the room. 3 chefs collapse as their lungs flatten. In the lobby, the gold plating on the statues begins to flake off. The gold does not hit the floor. It turns into gray ash before it travels 1 inch. The law of large numbers drone hovers lower. Its 20-sided die head rotates with the speed of a turbine. It emits a pulse of blue light. Every digital display in the resort changes. The names of the guests vanish. They are replaced by account numbers. Next to each number is a countdown timer. What is this? Sterling demands. He grabs the drone's mechanical neck. Debt collection protocol, the machine replies. The voice is a series of sharp clicks. Sterling Vane has assumed total liability. To maintain the local reality, the system requires energy. Since the luck is gone, the system will now harvest biological potential. Sterling looks at his hands. The skin is turning gray. He is the battery now. He is the one paying for 10 years of impossible winning streaks. A guest rushes into the control room. It is the billionaire who won the 14 jackpots. He holds a gold-plated pistol. His face is distorted by fear. The exit is locked, the billionaire screams. He points the gun at Sterling's head. The sensors say the probability of the door opening is 0. Change it, Vane. Change the numbers, or I kill you. Sterling tries to smile. His jawbone aches from the earlier fracture. It is a temporary fluctuation. My system is just calibrating. Put the gun down. You are a winner. Remember the law of attraction. The billionaire pulls the trigger. The gun does not fire. The hammer strikes the primer, but the chemical reaction fails to occur. Instead, the heat of the failed explosion transfers into the handle. The metal turns white hot. The billionaire screams. He drops the gun. His skin stays attached to the metal. The law has changed, the drone states. In a debt state, the probability of failure for the creditor is 100%. The gun failed to fire because its success would have benefited a bankrupt entity. Sterling pushes the billionaire aside. He runs for the private elevator. He needs to get to the basement. He thinks he can manually reset the logic gates. He thinks he can bargain with the statistics. Outside, the rain has stopped falling vertically. The water droplets hover in the air, vibrating. Arthur stands in the center of the street. He is a dead zone of physics. The vibrating water avoids him. He looks at his watch. Phase 2 complete, Arthur says. The resort's tower begins to groan. The sound is the vibration of 10,000 steel beams losing their molecular bond. The building is not falling. It is becoming less real. The lights in the windows shift from gold to a sickly violet. Arthur sees a black car approaching. It is a security vehicle. It is moving at 60 miles per hour. The driver is trying to escape the resort's zone of influence. The car hits a small patch of oil on the road. Under normal laws, the car would slide. Under the current debt state, the car undergoes a total structural failure. The bolts holding the wheels to the axle shear off simultaneously. The engine block detaches and falls through the bottom of the car. The vehicle disintegrates into its component parts while still moving. The driver is left sitting in a leather seat, sliding across the pavement at 50 miles per hour. He stops exactly 1 inch from Arthur's shoes. Arthur does not look down. He looks at the penthouse window. He knows Sterling is watching the screens. You signed the paper, Sterling, Arthur whispers into the cold air. You wanted to be the house. Now you have to pay the winners. In the penthouse, Sterling enters the elevator. He presses the button for the basement. The elevator does not move down. The floor of the elevator becomes liquid. Sterling sinks into the metal up to his knees. The steel hardens again. He is trapped. He is part of the building now. The drone floats in through the open door. Its die head shows a 0. Interest calculation finished, the drone says. Total debt exceeds local matter. Commencing liquidation of the proxy's timeline. The elevator car is no longer a transport vehicle. It is a biological processing unit. The steel floor, now hardened, clamps around Sterling's knees. It exerts 4,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. Sterling's patellas crush. The sound of bone splintering is a dry, hollow snap. The law of large numbers drone hovers 6 inches from his face. Its die head is stationary. It projects a holographic auction ledger onto the wall. Asset liquidation protocol active, the drone announces. The proxy's primary currency is exhausted. Commencing trade of secondary biological assets to satisfy immediate energy requirements. On the screens throughout the resort, Sterling's medical records appear. His blood type, his organ efficiency, his neural processing speed. They are no longer private data. They are commodities. In the security hub, Chief Miller looks at the screen. He is the man Sterling hired to be his iron fist. Miller holds a control tablet. His finger hovers over a buy button. The system is offering a 3-foot radius of stabilized probability for 10 minutes, Miller says into his headset. His voice is flat. The price is 1 human liver. Efficiency rating 98%. Miller does not look at the cameras. He looks at the total responsibility clause. Sterling signed. The fine print is now a glowing neon red. It states that the owner's body is the ultimate collateral for the resort's debt. Miller presses the button. In the elevator, a surgical laser arm deploys from the ceiling. It moves with a speed of 0.5 seconds per stroke. It cuts through Sterling's silk shirt. It cuts through the skin. It does not use anesthesia. Anesthesia requires a probability of pain reduction, and Sterling's current success rate is 0. Sterling's scream is cut short. The system has already sold his vocal cords to a wealthy guest in the lounge, who traded them for a 1-hour delay of a localized heart attack. Outside, Arthur stands in the middle of a 4-way intersection. A massive truck, carrying 20 tons of construction steel, loses its brakes. The truck hurtles toward Arthur at 70 miles per hour. Arthur does not move. He does not flinch. He checks his watch. The truck reaches Arthur. 10 feet before impact, the front left tire undergoes a sudden molecular debonding. The rubber turns to dust. The truck veers. It misses Arthur by 3 inches. The vehicle slams into a fire hydrant. The water geyser erupts. It does not touch Arthur. Every drop follows a trajectory that curves around him. Arthur reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a small transmitter. He speaks into it. His voice broadcasts over every speaker in the resort. "You ignored the secondary law of the karma sink, Sterling," Arthur says. "You thought you were buying luck, but you were actually participating in a probabilistic Ponzi scheme. Every win you gave to your guests was a loan taken from the future. I was the one holding the interest rates down. Now the market is correcting itself." Inside the control room, the chief engineer tries to bypass the drone's command. He is a genius. He finds a logic loop. "If I delete the responsibility clause, the system loses its proxy," the engineer mutters. He enters the command. The drone's die head spins once. Command intercepted. Logic bomb detected. Arthur's probability agency included a hidden default swap trigger. By attempting to delete the clause, you have confirmed your status as a probabilistic accomplice. You have shared the dividends of the stolen luck for 10 years. You are now a secondary debtor. The engineer freezes. He looks at his own hands. His gold wedding ring begins to glow. The metal reaches 2,000 degrees in 1 second. It melts through his finger. The engineer screams. He falls. The system immediately lists his heart on the auction block. The betrayal spreads. The security guards in the lobby realize the math. They do not fight the system. They fight each other. They hunt for the high-value guests. They are not protecting them. They are harvesting them. If they can trade a guest's life to the system, they can buy another 10 minutes of safety. Sterling watches the security feed from the elevator. He sees his empire become a cannibalistic machine. He sees Miller, his most loyal guard, dragging a screaming billionaire toward a disposal chute. "Why?" Sterling mouthed the word. He has no voice. Arthur's voice responds from the speakers. "Because you taught them that winning is everything, Sterling. You taught them that the loser is a stain on the system. Now, you are the loser. You are the biggest debt on the ledger. And in your world, the only thing we do with a debt is collect it." The elevator begins to move. It is not going to the basement. It is going to the roof. The probability of the cable's holding is dropping by 10% every second. Arthur looks at the casino tower. The gold plating is now completely gone. The building is a skeletal structure of rusted iron and gray concrete. 60 seconds to total liquidation, Arthur says. He turns his back on the tower and begins to walk. He does not need to see the end. The numbers have already decided the outcome. The elevator doors open on the roof of the tower. There is no roof. The concrete has already transitioned into a state of high-frequency vibration. The molecules are separating. Sterling vein spills out onto a surface that feels like liquid static. He has no legs. The system has already traded his lower extremities to satisfy a debt of 500 million credits of lost winning streaks. The law of large numbers drone hovers above him. The giant 20-sided die head stops. It glows with a color that does not exist in the visible spectrum. Final liquidation protocol initiated, the machine says. Current debt balance: 3 trillion units of entropy. Available assets: 1 consciousness, 1 legal identity, 1 history. Sterling tries to reach for the drone. His remaining hand passes through the machine. He is losing his density. He is becoming a ghost of failed math. I built this, Sterling mouths. No sound comes out. His lungs now belong to a middle-aged schoolteacher, 3,000 miles away, who just survived a fatal pneumonia. Correction, the drone states. You borrowed this. You leveraged the existence of others to create a bubble of impossible certainty. The bubble is now empty. The universe is reclaiming the space. The drone executes the system blue screen path. Sterling's perception of time shatters. To the world outside, the tower takes exactly 4 seconds to collapse. To Sterling, those 4 seconds are stretched into 365,000 years of absolute observation. He watches every single atom of the building drift away. He feels the slow, agonizing erosion of his own memories. First, he forgets his mother's face. Then he forgets the name of his resort. Finally, he forgets the concept of winning. In the physical world, the tower does not fall over. It simply ceases to be. It dissolves into a cloud of gray dust that smells like old paper and copper. There is no explosion. There is no fire. There is only a hole in the city skyline. The wealthy guests who survived the internal massacre find themselves standing on a vacant lot. They are covered in gray ash. They look at their hands. Their expensive rings have turned into lead. Their designer clothes have reverted to raw, unspun wool. The luxe surplus has been retracted. A woman looks at Chief Miller, the security head. Miller is holding a handful of dirt. He was holding a billionaire's life seconds ago. Now, he owns nothing. He doesn't even remember who Sterling Vane was. Who were we waiting for? The woman asks. Miller shakes his head. I don't know. The ledger is empty. Sterling Vane lies in the center of the dirt lot. He is invisible. The system has deleted his legal presence. To the human eye, he is a trick of the light, a blur in the air. He tries to grab the ankle of a passing survivor. His hand passes through the woman's leg. She doesn't feel a thing. Help, Sterling whispers. The sound is lower than the hum of a fly. On the street corner, Arthur stands by the curb. He is perfectly clean. Not a single speck of the gray ash has touched his suit. He raises his hand. A yellow taxi, moving at 30 miles per hour, suddenly slows down. It stops exactly 2 inches from Arthur's hand. The driver leans out. Headed to the airport, pal? The driver asks. He has a wide, genuine smile. I just had the strangest feeling I should take this turn. Lucky for you, I guess. Arthur opens the door. He does not look back at the vacant lot. He does not look at the screaming man who is being erased by the wind. It wasn't luck, Arthur says. He sits in the back seat and closes the door. It was a balanced equation. The taxi pulls away. It hits every green light on the way to the terminal. Arthur looks out the window. He sees a small boy on the sidewalk find a lost coin. He sees an old woman catch a bus just as the doors are closing. The city is messy again. The probability is no longer gathered in one tower. It is flowing through the streets, unpredictable and fair. Behind them, the gray dust from the resort is swept away by a sudden gust of wind. Sterling Vane's final thought is not about power or gold. It is about a cold, dry sandwich. He realizes he is hungry, but he no longer has a stomach to fill. The taxi turns the corner. The resort is gone. The debt is settled. The house is closed for the night.
Watching Sterling turn into literal statistical dust while clutching a sandwich wrapper is the kind of mathematical justice that just hits different. If you had the power to balance every unfair moment in your life at once, would you do it knowing it might collapse the world around you? I actually spent a few hours debating whether Sterling should keep his legs, but then I realized the system wouldn't leave a single penny or a single bone on the table for a bankrupt soul.